eMotion free with RTK and PPK through eBee Plus. Content, so we'll be talking about first a bit abbreviations, advantages of RTK, PPK, and how you set it up. Then eMotion free setup and activation, as well as monitoring during the flight. And then we'll go through Flight Data Manager, how to import the data and applying, if necessary, PPK or based on unknown point corrections. Some abbreviations first that we'll come across quite often. RTK means real-time kinematic, so it's there to enhance the precision of position data derived from GNSS in real time. PPK, on the other hand, is post-processing kinematic, enhance the precision of position data derived from GNSS afterwards. So whenever you're back after your project in the office and you apply your corrections to your position data at that time, that's post-processing kinematic. Then we have the word base station, which means a physical reference station or GNSS receiver, which is set up as a base. Then we have the word VRS, which is virtual reference station. It's not a physical one, so you get your correction through a network streamed to your device. Then we have, of course, continuously operating reference stations, which is usually a network of stations built up by the government or a local organization that run a couple of physical reference stations that build a network. Then we have GNSS, Global Navigation Satellite System, which includes GPS, GLONASS, and in the future, one or the other more. RTCM, Radio Technical Commission for Maritime Services. It's a standard data streaming format, and RINAX, Receiver Independent Exchange format, contains the raw satellite information for a specific position. So advantages of RTK and PPK. We all probably come a bit more from the world where we collect the data and we have to correct it afterwards. Means we collect it and we end up having the data in relative accuracy. We have to go out, collect ground control points, enter them in our system, in this case PIX4D, in order to bring the data to absolute accuracy. This is all time consuming. Sometimes it doesn't work right away and has to redo. So quite a bit more work here. Versus RTK and PPK, where we, right after the flight, especially in the RTK case, have our geotags in absolute accuracy. So in this example, we have 113 geotags being within an accuracy or with a sigma error of 4.4 centimeters. So now we already noticed there's a difference between RTK and PPK. RTK, so the real time, is generally more precise than PPK. So always start with the RTK. If, though, you have troubles outside and therefore your RTK results are not good enough, or you experience link loss during the flight, or your RTK equipment is not available in the place that you are, either it was a very inaccessible place where you didn't have an internet connection, nor was it possible to take the equipment for the base station along, then PPK is basically your safety net with which you can still bring your data in a more or less easy way into absolute accuracy. Now, with eMotion and eBee Plus, we have several ways of achieving this high accuracy. First of all, we have the standalone mode, which we know, where this is the option with the GCP collection. Now, as a second option is RTK through a VRS system. Third option, RTK through a base station, either on a known point or an unknown point. Then we have everything that's PPK, where PPK can be through VRS or through a base station. Where PPK through a base station, you should make sure that this station, which is usually part of a of a coarse network is not further away than 30 kilometers. You can go, but you lose a lot of accuracy and precision that way. Now, before you can get started though, and if you are one of the lucky guys who just received their eBee Plus, you got it, but once you connect to eMotion, there is no sign of RTK PPK. That's because first what you have to do is you go into eMotion, you go into My senseFly, you log in with your password and usually email address that you chose. Under My Products, you find your drone, eBee Plus, and right at the end of the row, you find RTK PPK license download option. You will download a file there, which you save locally on your computer. If you just got your eBee Plus, you have access to a trial version, which lasts for 1 month. In order to activate this license, you have to go into eMotion Free. You set up the connection to your drone through the modem. Okay, so drone with battery and modem, USB modem connected to your laptop. Then, first of all, you establish the connection. Once you're connected, you go here on the drone panel, which is on your right-hand side. There you go into the last tab, Settings tab, and you browse at the bottom for your license file. So that's all under eBee Plus Upgrade. Browse for the license file. Once you found it, click on Start Upgrade. With this, the autopilot will be activated for this RTK PPK license. If you afterwards connect that drone to any other machine with eMotion Free, eMotion Free will recognize that this eBee Plus is capable of RTK PPK. Then there are 2 more steps to do, which we will look at right in a bit. Basically, in order to do your flight using an RTK source or an RTK correction, you have to set up your source and then select your source in order to really get your signal into a fixed mode. So RTK means during flight receiving corrections. Again, standalone virtual reference station or local base unknown or unknown. And here you can set up the VRS system, which I show you now here. First, I need to connect. Don't see. Okay, better. Okay, and my RTK is not ready yet. So settings tab, if you want to activate your RTK PPK license, basically just for the simulator, you need to go to the same place as for the real license, but click here just on the check mark, activate, upgrade for simulator. Once you have done so, you will see that you have now on your left-hand side in the mission panel a tab called RTK PPK. And here you can set up your RTK PPK source. Clicking on it opens a window where you can specify either a base station, reference points, or a VRS. So let's look at the VRS first. At the bottom, add virtual reference. Click. Now select your network. Of course, you will need a subscription probably for that. That gives you also a username and a password, so enter those. And then you might end up with a whole list of possible streams. And then you select the one that fits your needs. Especially in this case, it is important to select the one that doesn't have any transformations. Once you did so, click OK. OK. And now, under RTK source not defined, you can select from the list your VRS that you just set up. Once it's selected, you have to wait a moment like we did now, and it shows you then the format of the stream, RTCM3, can also be 2. Then we have GPS and GLONASS need to have the OK sign just here. Then furthermore, you have on the drone panel, you have RTK fixed sign, and in the drone status panel on the right-hand side, we find here under instrument GNSS, accuracy, and mode RTK fixed. So these 3 places help you to verify that your link is still established, that your drone is receiving the correction, and so on. Now, if you're working with a base station, it's a bit different. First of all, you have to get your station ready. Your station you can connect to either through cable or Bluetooth. You have to have it fairly close to your computer. Of course, with Bluetooth, you can be further away. You can set it up on a known point or an unknown point. We'll talk about in a bit. Your station needs to be set up in base mode. It needs to be transmitting RTCM2 or 3, and both signals from GPS and GLONASS. You need to set the baud rate, and if possible, if you can change the coordinate system to WGS84, it is in general better, although, yeah. Now, in your tab where you specify your base station settings in eMotion, so sometimes you also have to quickly do some adjustments in your device manager and the base station's own software, like for Topcon or Trimble. There are little tools that you have to install and do some changes there in order to have the right settings or to receive the signal from the station. So you need to make sure that through the station, through the device manager, through softwares and eMotion 3, you have the same baud rate and the corresponding port. The connection ports and the baud rate are important. We recommend to always go with the 115,000 here, and that seems to be a baud rate that works throughout. You can try other ones if you have access to them. Once you set up that connection, then you click OK, and you have it as a source specified and available again here in your eMotion. And of course, this is only possible outside, so this is why I'm showing it here on the slide. Once you select it, a window pops up and it says set up local base. If you set it up on an unknown point, you select unknown point and then click on open base drone data stream. With this, it will give you here again the streaming modes and the OKs for GPS and GLONASS. Just below, it gives you the antenna type and the position. Verify if this position is the actual position of the station. eMotion even gives you or displays for you a station. Shouldn't be too far away. Here I don't have it. Higher. It's here in white, just behind the drone. Do we see better? Maybe 50 higher. Okay, so this is now through VRS, so it just assumes it to be where the drone is, but you see this little station sign, which gives you an idea of the position. Keep in mind that when you place your base station on an unknown point, you will have to post-process the position of the unknown point. And I will later on show you how this works in Flight Data Manager. Now, if you place your base station on a known point, there is one additional step more. In your setup window, you need to go here on the second tab and specify your reference point. So that known point needs to be added here. add point, you give it a name, you specify the coordinates and the ellipsoidal height. Very important here, use ellipsoidal height and not any other heights, autometrics, or so forth. I'll show you again here on the slide. Once you then select again your base station, and in your window that pops up, you would select unknown reference point, where you then select your point. You have a whole list of points here. You select it, and then it gives you the position and the antenna reference, open data stream. You verify the position and ready to go. Again, while you have your correction sent to the drone through the modem, you have all the notifications here that it's actually there, the signal. You have it here on the left-hand side, in the middle, or basically where your drone is. It should always say RTK fixed, and it also says under instruments. Good, and with this I hand over to Anna, who is going to tell us more about what's happening after the flight.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Andrea, for this. Well covered pre-flight settings and monitoring during the flight. I'm going to tell you about Flight Data Manager and possible and necessary steps later in after the flight when you come back in the office. So, okay. So first, when you come back in the office, you need to get the information from your drone. So when you open your eMotion 3, you go on the left side into Flight Data Manager, which is marked with post-flight, and you need to connect your drone with the USB cable to be able to get the BBX file of the drone and enter the SD card to get the photos from the camera. In the first step of the Flight Data Manager, you need to specify the name of the project and the path where you want to create it, and then you can click next to the next steps. Okay, so the next step then it would be to enter your BBX file, which contains all the information of the trajectory and of the of number of photos and so on. When you do that and you go into next, then you have the part we can see over here where we evaluate our geotags. So depending on in which type you flew your eBee Plus or eBee RTK, depending on the drone you have, so you get a window like this if you are flying in RTK VRS or based on a known point, as Andrea said before. In this case, all the information necessary is already saved in the BBX, and there are no additional processing files necessary. In this case, I would also mention that if using eBee Plus and SODA camera, you can simply get the images from the SD card of the SODA, and they are already geotagged and saved with accuracy, and you can directly go into your processing software. However, while you evaluating your geotags, as on the screen over here, we always have it showing what is the number of the RTK fixed photos, how many images are fixed, and how many were in standalone, and then overall. So here we can see that we have 112 fixed images during the flight, which was 99%, and next to it we can see the accuracy of the geotags. So this sigma is showing the internal accuracy, which is based on the GPS board. So I said in this case, with the RTK VRS and the based on an unknown point, we can simply say next, and the next step would be to import your images, and the Flight Data Manager workflow is done. But as we said before, we have other options. Either if we flew in an unknown point, so before the flight we connect the base station and we did not specify the position of the base station, if we are using eBee Plus, we get three options. So one of them is to enter the true position of the base station. So for this is useful, for example, if we don't know the benchmark or the point on which the base station was set during the flight, but you know it later, you get this interface where it's necessary to enter the coordinate in WGS84 of the base. Over here, you also need to specify the height reference, which is usually a ground marker. Because if we're using the base station, we usually have it on a pole, and here we can specify the antenna height. The second option is, if we don't have a known point, it's to correct the position of the base with the information from the reference station. In this case, what we have to enter is the RINEX of the base station, the RINEX of the reference station. So how do we get the RINEX of the reference station? I will cover a bit later when we will talk about the option of PPK. So in cases when you are flying, like as we see over here, in standalone mode, so meaning that you don't have a base station available to be able to fly with it, eBee Plus is great for PPK, which can be just as a fallback if the RTK is not working properly, or simply because you don't have an option to use the RTK. In that case, you will see over here we can see this at standalone. So at first, when we import the BBX, it is showing that the RTK fix is 0. So this is normal because during the flight we did not have any correction that it would tell you that that it will provide the extra correction. So in this case, it's needed to have the RTK PPK license to be able to perform the PPK workflow. So when we decide to use the PPK workflow, we are working with the raw GNSS data from the drone, which is saved in the BBX file. So when we are using over here the PPK, this is the window that we are getting and the information that we need to enter. So the information over here that we need to enter is the same as before, the reference station RINEX. This depends on each country. How do we get our RINEX? For example, over here you can see I am working on the example of Switzerland. This is usually provided by local authorities. As Andrea said before, we usually need to have a subscription to be able to access this. Over here in Switzerland, it's named SWIPOS, and it's RINEX shop. And what is important when we are getting the reference station data? Important is the position of the station. So if we're using course, continuously operating reference station, as we can see over here, example Switzerland, it is distributed all over, and we make sure that we choose the one that is closest to our flight. The best is that it is lower, that is closer than 30 kilometers. If it is higher, it will also work, but it's a bigger possibility that the accuracy of the geotags will be lower. Once we decide on the base that we choose, it is important to enter the correct occupation time of the GPS. So the occupation time of the reference station must be at the same time as you were flying the drone. So over here we have an example again of the SWIPOS, which information you need to enter. So you need to information the date of your flight, the start time, and the duration. Here it is important to enter the GPS time, not your local time. Another thing that is important is the interval of observations. It needs to be on 1 second because the drone is working the same with 1 second interval. So once we have our RINEX files, we enter them into the flight data manager as shown on the slide over here. It's written over here that either we can take the closest from our core station, or some web pages offer also VRS, so the virtual reference station, which could usually be more precise because you calculate it from the stations around, and it will give you the Rhinex of the virtual station very close to your flight. So over here we see that we enter the all of the files underneath. Usually when you import the Rhinex files, the observation file, it detects the antenna model and it detects the position of your base, of the base from which is read from the Rhinex. It is good to always verify this just in case. And once we enter this, we click next. Once we click next, over here, it's this step usually is taking some time, but it's very good because everything is done inside of the eMotion, when we don't need any other softwares. And here are the processing steps. So first, it is opening the drones file, then it's opening the Rhinex, combining it, and calculating the solution. So over here, it is calculating the solution. It says one of two because the processing goes forward and backwards as the drone was flown. So it gives us two solutions, which later eMotion merged them and to give you a more precise result. After this, the final evaluation of the geotags, you can see on the screen. We can compare the geotags that were done in the flight. As we've seen before, the RTK fix was 0. Now, after the post-process, the RTK fix, we have 100%, which means that it was successfully chosen Rhinex files and that the eMotion was able to calculate a fixed solution. Over here, we can have we can see the sigma error to be sure. So as mentioned before, if you would have a Rhinex from far away, this error would more likely be bigger. In this case, if you're getting more standalone photos than fix, it could be that the occupation time was not correct or the Rhinex was too far away. So in that case, you would just verify that your Rhinex file was correct. After completing those steps and when you analyze geotags and you're happy with your result, you go into the final stages of Flight Data Manager where it's computing all of the results. Over here, we can see the project folder that eMotion 3 gives. So we can see that it copied its BBX file. If you've flown with this computer, it also copies the EFL file. GeoInfo, which is including the information of the geotags of all the photos. And if you have a Pix4D software already installed, it also creates a P4D file and the KML. Later, when you are done with the Flight Data Manager, you can verify your accuracy and your images. For example, in Pix4D, over here we can see a screenshot of the image properties editor. So once you open your project, you can see in the list of images, next to them also horizontal and vertical accuracy of each of the photos. Like this, we can see that here we have 5 centimeters, which is very good, and we are ready to process